you so much for tuning into the Condo Pod. Welcome to the Condo Pod, brought to you by the Canadian Condominium Institute, Eastern Ontario chapter. From governance and legal updates to maintenance, management, and community living, the Condo Pod tackles key issues affecting our condominium community. Whether you are a condo owner, director, or industry professional, you will find insights, stories, and expert advice to help you navigate the world of condominiums with confidence. We are diving into the topics that matter most to condo owners, directors, and professionals across the region. So on that note, let's dive right in. If you are not yet a member of CCIE Eastern Ontario, don't forget to join us. For more information about how you can become a member, click the link below in the show notes. Today, we are starting a 3-part mini-series, a topic that affects all condos at one time or another in their lifespan. The Ontario New Home Warranty Program, otherwise known as Tarion. And today, I have 2 fantastic guests who know this process or program inside out, backwards, forwards. They're going to help us be guided through all of the various key issues that we need to be thinking about over this 3-part series. The first one we're going to talk about are just getting to know Tarion. What are the best steps you need to take to set yourself up for success? Next, what are all the hot topics? What's going on in the industry today? And finally, the conciliation and post-conciliation process. That's just a little teaser of what's to come. Okay, let's get to know our guests a little bit better. First, we have Evan Lloyd, Condominium Manager and Director of Strategy and Partnerships at Sentinel Property Management. As a former scientist turned manager, I think Evan knows how to dive into those little details and doesn't miss any of them. He looks at things with a critical and analytical eye, and I think he loves the Tarion process, maybe?
Do a little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
Thanks, Nancy.
Another one who loves the Tarion process, or at least has been living with it for many, many years, Christy Allen, founding partner of Davidson, Houle Allen, serving the condo industry and acting exclusively for condominium corporations through the Tarion process for over 2 decades. I think Christy is the most seasoned lawyer for condos in dealing with Tarion in Eastern Ontario. Evan, Christy, thank you so much for being here today. Let's jump into our first hot topic. The introduction to Tarion, setting yourself up for success right from the get-go. What do we need to be thinking about in this process?
Do you want to start?
Sure, I can take us off. I guess from the very beginning of this process, you're really looking at it before the process even begins. And that's before the turnover meeting, before the condominium's even registered. From the manager's perspective, depending on where you come on board in this process, you may be managing the condo on the behalf of the declarant, so you have an opportunity to see the building as it's being completed. You may also be coming on board at the turnover meeting or just after the turnover meeting, in which case you're trying to find documents, you're learning the building, and you're trying to get up to speed as quickly as you can before you have to make that initial filing to Tarion.
Fabulous. And I guess for those of you, or for those of us who may not know, really, what does Tarion do? What is Tarion? Should we give a little bit of a Tarion 101? Christy?
Sure. So Tarion is the agency that administers the Ontario New Home Warranties Plan Act. So the warranties that are provided, the statutory warranties that are provided to all new homeowners in Ontario are provided pursuant to this act, and Tarion is the agency that administers the plan. So any warranty claims that are made to Tarion, and then Tarion is the ultimate decision maker with respect to warranty coverage when claims are made.
So is the guiding or binding document for Tarion then is the Ontario New Home Warranty Plan Act?
That's correct. Yeah.
That's what we go back to at each stage.
Exactly. And it's, so that's the act that governs the program. The documents that are helpful are going to be more found in the regulations and what Tarion refers to as its builder bulletins, which set out its processes that it follows.
Okay. I think we're going to go through some of those a little bit later on.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go backwards then a little bit. So now we know what Tarion is. We know that from the day the condo was born, Tarion is important. What are our very first deadlines, I guess, that we need to be thinking about? What are the first deadlines?
Yeah, so I guess from my end, that first performance audit. So the first performance audit that the Condominium Corporation will file is due by the anniversary of the Condominium Corporation's registration at Land Registry. So you have 1 year until that anniversary to, hire consultants, complete complete some reviews and an audit of the building, and then compile a list of deficiencies that you would then submit as part of a performance audit to Tarion for that first year claim. And there's different claims you can make as well and different coverage levels. And I think, we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but you have your 1 year, your 2 year, and your 7 year.
Okay, so who takes care of this process? Who's in charge of getting the performance audit done, of filing it with Tarion? Who are the key people here?
Go ahead.
So the key aspect of the first year claim is the performance audit, as Evan mentioned. The performance audit is something that is also driven by statute. It's covered by the Condominium Act. The requirements for the performance audit are dictated by the Condominium Act. And that requires that an engineer, an architect, somebody else who's professionally qualified to complete the performance audit. Typically, it's going to be an engineer or an architect who does the performance audit. And that has to be done between the 6-month and 11-month mark from the date of registration of the condominium. So going back to Evan's earlier comment, the date of registration is pretty key to the entire process. Everything sort of flows from that.
Yeah. Yeah, your claim timeline flows that way. And it's interesting too, I find it interesting at least, that the Condominium Act says that the performance audit will not be conducted earlier than 6 months and no later than 10 months, and that you file it by the 11th month. But Tarion will take it up to the first anniversary. So the condominium corporation should file before the end of the 11th month, or before the beginning of the 11th month, I'm sorry. And then you could file addendum after that. So if there's something that comes up that wasn't captured in that initial submittal, you can add on to it. And you can file and make as many submissions as you like for that first year. And then once you hit that anniversary and Tarion accepts the performance audit, it'll all be compiled into one claim or one audit, and then every line item is a separate claim within Tarion's filing.
Oh, that's interesting. So as long as you meet that first deadline, multiple addendums end up getting compiled into one.
Good, yeah.
Well, I think that's really an important practical point too, because we all know the industry's busy. Engineers are busy. So it could be that in that 4-month time frame between 6 months and 10 months, you really only have a chance to look at, 80% of the items, get that filed in, use that extra time to look at the other 20% of the items and make sure that you've got a complete submission of everything that could be going on in the building. Would that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the other thing to keep in mind for usually more complex projects is that not everything is going to even be completed within the first year in terms of construction. So there could be further first year claims in the sense that we'll say that a swimming pool is part of the project, but it's not completed until later, much later after creation of the condominium corporation. Its first year warranty won't start until it's actually available for occupancy. So all of these timelines need to be tracked, which is not an easy feat for managers like Evan.
Yeah, your calendar becomes your best friend, be it in Outlook or Gmail or whatever you use. But yeah, it's really important, even if you have assets that are incomplete, that you put that on your performance audit, and your engineer, your architect could just say, that like the pool, for example, still under construction. That's still warranted. Like that is still something Tarion will accept.
Right.
And the condominium corporation may run into trouble down the line if it's not noted in that first submission.
So note the component in the first submission, but then your 1-year deadline won't start to track until it's ready for use or until it's completed.
Typically. I think the thing
there's always a typical in here somewhere. Nothing is black and
So
white.
much nuance to this. Yeah.
There's a lot of nuance because there's what the Act says, the Ontario New Home Warranties Plan Act, and its regulations, but then there's a lot that's not specifically covered by that. And so it's like the gray area that Tarion sort of fills in with its policies that you may or may not, like they may or may not be published and available to homeowners. So you're just sort of being guided by the claims representative and what's required for the particular item. But there's definitely a lot of nuance, which I think is why it really is important to have people working on your Tarion claims that have experience, because this nuance may not be identifiable to everybody. If you don't have experience, and unless the Tarion claims rep is bringing something to your attention, you're not going to even know that you may have additional warranty coverage available, or there might be something that you're supposed to do by a certain deadline that's not explicitly covered by the act itself.
And that can be really challenging for board members
Yeah.
because they are volunteers. For a lot of them, this may be their first home. So they not only are introduced to a condominium setting for the first time, but they're introduced to Tarion administering the Home Warranty Protection Act. They have two different warranties. They have the warranty for their unit, and they have the warranty for the common elements that they then have to get involved in and become knowledgeable of within months. And for board members as well, this is the same time where they're learning how to balance a budget, dealing with the cost of running, a high rise or a townhouse corporation or anything in between. Learning about governing documents and the Condominium Act in general. I mean, this happens frequently at the beginning of this process with boards, and that represents its own challenges for managers and for board members alike.
Yeah.
So you've got the day-to-day onboarding and learning of your brand new board of directors, plus you've got this separate beast that you have to tackle to make sure that you've got everything dotted, T's crossed, and getting that in within a certain specified time frame. So I think I might have interrupted you guys with some of my questions. There was a mention of a Tarion designate role. So what is the Tarion designate role? What is that? And tell me a little bit more about that.
You want me to start?
Yeah.
Sure. So Tarion requires a designate from the developer and from the condominium corporation. That designate represents those parties. So the developer will appoint someone or set someone to be their designate. Condominium corporation will do the same. And for the condominium corporation, it may be your manager. It might be one of your board members. It may also be a third-party expert that the corporation decides to retain to represent them in this Tarion warranty process. But that designate is ultimately responsible for ensuring that the condominium corporation meets their statutory deadlines for the filings. So we talked about the importance of getting that first-year performance audit in by the 11th month and by the anniversary of registration. That designate is key in making sure that submittal occurs, that they attend and be available and responsible to Tarion as well as the developer for notification of emergency claims and for various other things that can go wrong in that first year. And Tarion also will write to them as well as the board president with any questions or any matters that come up for their file. So there is a meeting that takes place with Tarion, the designate and the boards early on. It's Register Bulletin 2, I believe, is the meeting. But at that meeting, Tarion describes the coverages available to the condominium corporation, how the performance audit process works, what conciliation and that post-conciliation period may look like, and most importantly, they set out the deadlines. So Tarion will actually submit a letter to the condominium corporation that sets out the deadlines for, the first performance audit, your second performance audit, the builder repair period, the timeline for applying for conciliation, all of that. So it's the designate is kind of the key holder. They're the linchpin in the warranty claim, in the performance audit claim with Tarion.
So we got a designate from the condominium corporation, a designate from the declarant. We have a Tarion representative. We have an engineer or an architect or other licensed individual to perform the performance audit. These are people who are going to be key throughout your process. Other two, we might have obviously a manager if they're not already the designate role, board member, and legal counsel.
Exactly, yeah.
So we've got 7 or 8 people that are going to be involved in this process to make sure that it stays on track. Did I miss anybody?
I don't think so.
I think so.
Anybody else on the developer side? They have their own team as well.
That's fair. That's fair. Folks, we do have a little bit of a condo bias in this particular room here today, exclusively working with from the condo side. So we heard from Evan just a few moments ago about the RB2 process. So Christy, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So the RB stands for Register Bulletin. It's a bulletin that's published by Tarion, and it explains the warranty claim process for condominiums, specifically for common element claims. So it covers the process for making your 1, 2, and 7-year claims, and then it sets out the timeframes in which the builder has to complete repairs. So it's called the builder repair period. And then it also sets out the timeframe for requesting conciliation. So it's a sort of a full, it covers the full gamut in terms of the timeline for making and preserving claims by making that request for conciliation, which is a really important request, by the
Super
way.
duper, yeah.
Super duper important
duper.
request. I know we're
Don't miss the application for conciliation, folks.
okay. Well, let's talk about that then. It's a super duper important deadline we don't want to miss. And so let's go right into then the timelines for each of the warranties, how to make sure that you've preserved them, that you haven't missed anything, because you do in some cases only get one shot at it, right?
You do, yeah. From my perspective, it's one and done.
Yeah.
I think Christy can certainly speak to some
Legal ways
Extraordinary
of
circumstances.
That's-
The language of the act.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, from my perspective, the timelines are set. You're notified very early on, as I mentioned earlier, about that letter that you get as part of that RP2 meeting. So you have those dates. They're set out for you. There are extraordinary circumstances, which Christine, I'm sure, will touch on, but those are meant to be extraordinary. So simply missing the date because you forgot to make a submission or because you forgot to apply for conciliation, that is problematic for the condominium corporation. Should you miss your deadline, Tarion will view that all remaining defects or all remaining claims in your submission are withdrawn.
Okay, let's pause there. I think that's a really important point that we might want to hammer home today. If you have 1,000 items on your performance audit and they're in progress, some of them, still working on them, but if you miss your conciliation deadline, they will deem to have been withdrawn.
Correct.
That's a
That's
super
game over.
duper, that's a super duper miss if we miss that. Okay, that's
Yeah.
really important.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely don't want to miss it. So we talked about the first year warranty claim process, filing the performance audit and the time frame for that. There's a 2-year warranty as well, which provides still some really important coverage, mainly over building envelope leaks, mechanical and electrical systems. So really important. There's not unlike the first year process, which involves the performance audit, there's no similar process specified for the making a 2nd-year claim. So that's done. That can still be done through your engineer, and in fact, as a law firm, we typically recommend for our clients to complete a 2nd-year performance audit. And then submit that as their 2nd-year claim. It's not required. You can submit 2nd-year claims sort of ad hoc, but it's still necessary to make the claim in order to preserve it. Once the 2-year anniversary comes and goes, there's a builder repair period that still exists for another 6 months. And then after that is when the conciliation request has to be submitted. And there's a window. I think it's 60 days.
I wanted to say it was
90 days.
30.
Maybe it's 30
I'll
days.
check as we chat.
It's a very short window. The Tarion designate will receive notices from Tarion of the particular deadline, and it should be definitely underscored and highlighted, and not missed. And Nancy, to your point, if you're working with the builder, if the condominium is working with the builder to try to resolve items, until they're actually resolved, or there's an agreement in place confirming how the items are going to be resolved. And by in place, I mean signed, sealed, and delivered, not just discussing it, but actually in place. Don't miss that deadline, because that's the only, it's really the only thing you've got in order to force the issue. If you don't request conciliation and items are being discussed for resolution, in theory, the builder could sort of just withdraw from those. I'm not suggesting that would happen, but in theory, they could just withdraw from those discussions, and that would be it for the condominium corporation. It would have no recourse. So once the request is made, those discussions can continue. They can continue all the way up until conciliation, which doesn't happen for some time after the request is made. So It's really important not to be derailed from making the request for conciliation simply because there's ongoing discussions. Those can continue, as I said, and then the request for conciliation can be withdrawn.
I guess this is also a really important reason why you want to make sure that you have people who are very familiar with this process in your camp at this stage, whether it's somebody, a manager, legal counsel, engineer, architect, whoever it is that's going to be assisting the corporation through this particular series of events. Once you get to this conciliation phase, or just pre-request conciliation phase, if we don't have people in the know working with condominium corporations, they could be persuaded not to file a conciliation. Again, not suggesting anybody's doing this on purpose, but it could be others who are new to the process as well, saying, oh, look, we're working on this. For example, if we're in a court proceeding, often we would not move towards trial because we're working on a settlement discussion, we're working on offers, we're working on some sort of resolution. So we put that off. In the Tarion process, even if we're working together to try and resolve, do not be persuaded not to go to conciliation, because then you shot yourself in the foot.
Yeah.
That's it. And I mean, to highlight, the request for conciliation period is 60 days. So you do have a fair bit of time to do it. However, as the three of us know, time slips by quickly.
Yeah.
So if it's not highlighted in your calendar, you very well could miss it because you have everything else going on as well while dealing with this performance audit process. And it's not cheap, but it's not expensive either when you look at it in terms of the totality of the corporation. It's about $1,000 plus HST to file for conciliation, and it's the best $1,000 the condominium corporation will spend in its lifetime just to preserve the claim.
Mm-hmm.
So much more can happen once you make that request for conciliation and you maintain your warranty. But as we've said, if you miss that, you've deemed it withdrawn. So at that point, your warranty is done. Then the condominium corporation and its owners have to take on repair, maintenance, and capital expenditure on things that perhaps were a bona fide construction deficiency, but they have no recourse through Tarion or the developer at that point for to recoup any funds for the repair for the cost of that.
Okay, we have so much to talk about. I think we're already at about 20 or 25 minutes on just what we've talked about so far this morning. So I think we're going to turn our first part of this series into an A and a B. So to bring part A of this session to a close, we've talked about a various amount of timelines just leading us up to request for conciliation.
Mm-hmm.
So let's do a recap of the condo is born, request for conciliation is a little while later. If one of you can just walk us through what are those exact steps, or what's the path that would lead us there for part A of our series.
Okay, so this applies to like the normal condominium situation, there's all kinds of anomalies as we talked about that.
And we're going to touch on anomalies. So this would be in the ideal world.
Yeah, in an ideal world, your condominium is complete and it's registered on a particular date.
And all the components are complete.
Everything's
done.
So at month 6, the performance audit process starts. So at some point in time, turnover is going to happen. That is not within the control of the condominium corporation. And that can happen at any point in time. So in theory, we're talking about the board taking on so much. When the new board comes on, they could be walking into a situation where they're mid-performance audit. Like, they really are taking on a significant workload. Anyway, so that's sort of to the side. The new board will come in at any point in time within this process. But condominium is created 6 months later. The performance audit process starts. Has to be complete by month 10, and then submitted to Tarion by month 11. At any point from month 10 to month 12, the condominium can submit further claims, first-year claims, if they discover new claims. And then at the end of the first year, so on the anniversary of the creation of the condominium, the date of the creation of the condominium, the first year warranty claim comes to an end. And then the second year warranty claim starts. At that point in time, a builder repair period will start. So the performance audit gets submitted to to Tarion, and then as part of that, it's a performance audit tracking sheet.
Yeah.
Um,
Common Element Performance Audit Tracking Summary, or the CPATS.
Okay.
And that's a document that both parties get to work on together. It's hosted on Tarion's portal. And the designate for the condominium corporation and the designate for the developer will leave comments to each other, notes about deficiencies that have been resolved or things that are being challenged, or, hey, I just can't find this thing. Condo, can you help me find it? And that system is there for that purpose.
And that's, so we're year 2, day 1 of year 2, this tracking sheet gets put into place.
That's right. Yeah.
And then we also at the same time have year 2 performance audit items that can be submitted anytime from the beginning of year 2 to the end of year 2.
Correct.
Okay. And then at the end of year 2, that is our deadline for conciliation.
You've got another 6 months.
Okay. So give me the exact timeframes in an ideal situation for that particular. So we're end of year 2. What do we have to do at the end of year 2?
so all second year claims would have to be submitted by
Got it.
that deadline. So that's the important deadline there.
Okay.
But the builder repair period continues for another 6 months after the end of the second year anniversary.
Okay.
I say the end of the second year anniversary, the end of the second year or the second year anniversary.
Got it.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
6 months after that date is when the builder repair period comes to an end, and that's when the window opens to request conciliation.
And so then you have 60 days to request conciliation from that end of that 6-month period. You have 60 days.
Yeah.
And then
Calendar days.
Calendar days. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tarion has 90 days, I believe, from when the request is made to schedule the actual conciliation. So we're talking about the settlement discussions, those can continue throughout that time. And that's actually an additional builder repair window.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. So for the items that are on your request to conciliate, the builder has a further 90 days to address those before the conciliation takes place.
Okay. We're going to get into that in our next part B of our first session. We're also going to go back to the turnover period. So folks, thank you so much for tuning in to part A of episode 1 of our Tarion series. Stay tuned for part B, where we're going to circle back to turnover. We're going to talk more about that conciliation request, post-conciliation, where are we going to go with that, and a few more hot topics in how to set yourself up for success. And we'll see you soon.
Thanks for tuning into the Condo Pod, your source for all things condo in Eastern Ontario. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode, and share this podcast with your fellow condo community. For more resources and upcoming events, visit us at ccieasternontario.ca. Until next time, stay informed, stay connected, and keep your community strong.